Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Women's Wisdom Lounge. And today we're interviewing Naomi Stockman. My name is Brenda Rogers, and I'm the founder of the Facebook group. And it's my pleasure to bring to you the depths of wisdom and experience that are just in our little group. So thanks for being here. Now, Naomi, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Brenda. I'm really excited to be here and have a chat with you about something that I'm really passionate about, which is anxiety and depression. It's something that is very prevalent.
It's huge, right? And you are a clinical hypnotherapist, you study nutrition, and you've done trauma therapy as well, specializing in anxiety and depression. So you're a great person for us to speak to. So just tell us a little bit about how you came to this. What was a little bit about your journey that made you want to do something around this work?
Well, they say that in any kind of a self-help kind of industry that your mess is your message. And this is something that I only just put together. I know it's a common phrase that people say, but someone said it the other day and I thought that's sort of kind of true for me as well. It's you kind of go towards the thing that you can relate to, the thing that's affected you in your life. And look, anxiety and depression has affected me. It's affected me in ways where I've gone through a lot of stuff in the past and I've had to help myself get to good places. But it's also affected me because my sister had anxiety and depression extremely severely, and it actually led to her passing away in 2018 because anxiety and depression doesn't just come as it's not like having a headache. There's a whole myriad of stuff associated with it. It can be related to eating disorders, to phobias, to
grief and
substance, self-medication, I call it, because grief, all that sort of stuff. So it's not just like having, it's not something you have like the chicken pox. It's something that is a physical response in our body, and in order to manage that physical response, it can spread into whole different sections of life. So yeah, it's something that I'm passionate about. I did not intend to become a therapist. I'm an accountant, a financial controller. I had a fabulous job as the group financial controller for a group of 4 companies, earning fabulous money. And I was studying all this stuff out of self-interest because it was interesting to me. From where I'd come from 30 years ago, moving up through the self-help stuff, reading books and doing programs and stuff like that, to then enrolling in a life coaching course after I went through a very, very stressful divorce. And so I got the diploma of life coaching. Right through the whole course, I said, I'm never going to be a life coach. Then I did hypnotherapy training. I'm never going to be a hypnotherapist, because in my mind, hypnotherapy was, you're going to be a non-smoker, you're going to be skinny, just repeating to people over and over again about weight loss and smoking. That's what I pictured in my mind, and I thought, I could never do that, it'd be so boring. Then after that, I thought, look, all this coaching stuff makes absolutely no difference if somebody has a physical lack of health, because I know in me, if my nutritional status is not well, how can I possibly make the neurotransmitters and hormones in order for me to be balanced in the mind, calm, happy, all that sort of stuff. So I thought, look, it's really silly to sit down and coach someone when they're clearly not going to be able to achieve that nutritionally. So I went and did the advanced diploma into nutritional medicine, which took me several years and got out of that and went, I never want to be a nutritionist. So my whole time I'm there working as the financial controller, doing all this study in the background, keeping myself nice and busy. And then in 2018. Now, to give you sort of a backtrack story, my sister had had anxiety and depression since she was 16 when her boyfriend died in a car crash. And then there was other things that happened in her life that were traumatic. She was held up at gunpoint at a part-time job at Blockbuster Video. And look, things happened. And the anxiety and depression in her life, it was something in our family. So you know how you have a family what constellation of people, and so there's this one person that's struggling, and she did struggle with food stuff as well. So I unconsciously, I was helping myself with this study, but I was also studying all the stuff in order to help my sister. It's kind of like if you have somebody that has in your family that has a particular thing, then it's you sort of unconsciously go towards what would the solution to that problem be. And so when she passed away in 2018, and look, she her health was always for a very long time, for maybe 10 or 15 years, a very high stress point for all of us. But when she passed away, it was quite sudden. I just had Ollie, which he was 2 weeks old, and I'd taken him to see my family for the first time, and she never let anyone take photos, but she let us take photos of her holding him. And then 2 days later, she passed away. So I'm getting emotional now.
Oh gosh,
So for me, that was like, why is there not help for these people? Because this isn't something that's wrong with anyone. This is just stuff that's happened that's switched on the sympathetic nervous system in someone's body to make the world not safe, to make life not safe. And that is the one single cause of all anxiety. It's I'm not safe. Now that can be fear, safe from rejection, safe from failure, safe from physical harm or anything. It's a safety thing. Our unconscious says our unconscious is linked to our body and runs every process in our body, every electrical impulse, every neurological thing happens through the unconscious. So when we have a message, I'm not safe, we immediately release the adrenaline and cortisol and have anxiety. And then the other side of that is the depression, because people start with anxiety, and depression is like it's twin. They typically pair together. So after my sister passed away, it really, really bothered me that she had been, like, her and my mother and even myself had all said, like, we'd sent her, I'd paid for her to have hypnotherapy sessions maybe 10 years before I even studied hypnotherapy. No things she did. She was hospitalized multiple times. She went into rehabilitation centers. She saw a psychologist for about 15 years. First there was, different ones and all that sort of thing. So there was never any progress, and her symptoms might go up a little bit and then down a little bit, up a little bit. And so the trajectory, even though she sometimes got better, was that the symptoms got worse over time, not better. Because what happens with our unconscious is that it's programmed to flag, it only has one job, and that's to keep us safe, and it's programmed to flag threats and danger and unsafety kind of thing. And what it will do is it's almost like it has a radar out there to reaffirm what's already programmed in. So do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like
self-fulfilling prophecy kind of thing.
That's right. So if you have a lot of my clients will suffer, say, for example, workplace bullying. So you'll go out, get a job, you'll be excited about the new job, and then things will happen at work. So it's not safe to be out in the world, that kind of thing. And everyone has different levels, everyone has different situations and stories, and it all presents differently with everyone. But I'm not safe is the one and only cause of anxiety, and that's maybe not a conscious thing. So they call it the unconscious because we're not aware of it. So
Yeah.
people might say, well, I know I'm safe. Yes, you know you're safe, but your unconscious
Yeah.
is getting messages to
Yeah.
say that you're not. So that's that.
So what might
So,
have been the answer for your sister, do you think?
well, that led me to then go and study trauma training, and I studied with a lady that had a very traumatic backstory herself. She had probably the most extreme backstory that I've probably heard, and not just her, but also her son. So she developed a process, and I did her training, and since then I've done other trainings with other people, so ex drug addicts that have developed their own system. Obviously, they're ex drug addicts, but drug addiction, again, is a coping mechanism. It's the answer to the real problem. So when we have things like anxiety and so forth, it comes up in so many different ways, and so there's all these by things. But the solution for my sister and for anyone who's even mildly anxious is that I guess I'll explain one other thing first. There's only ever really 3 problems that anyone can have. And I call them the 3 A's. So that's just something I've put together, which the first one is we all need to feel adequate. So if we feel inadequate, that's going to cause anxiety because I'm not good enough. I don't, I'm whatever it might be as bad, as severe as I'm bad. Do you know what I mean? So we need to feel adequate. The second thing we need is to fully feel and believe, and this is at an unconscious level, not at the front. So I get people that, the front, our presenting mind says, well, but I am good enough. But in the back, there's that little voice that says, no, you're not.
I know that one.
It's,
It's
all these webinars on imposter system and stuff like that. We all it's all of us. We all need to feel that we're adequate. I am enough, and that's something that we it's the self-love and the self whatever. The second one is we need to feel acceptable. Now, acceptable means that I belong, I fit in, I'm wanted, do you know what I mean? If the opposite is, if we feel we don't belong and we don't fit in and we're different, a lot of my clients say, I'm different, I've always known it, I've been different since I was born. That's just a belief and a feeling that we are not fitting in, and we're hardwired to sorry at the background. We are hardwired.
We all went a bit distracted there. Say that again.
No, I was going to lock the door, but I sadly didn't. So we're hardwired to need to fit into our herd, because exclusion from our tribe means death in our primitive brain, and we have to remember that that part of the brain is the first part that developed. It's called the reptilian brain, and so it's not connected to logic. So the last one is capability, so ability, so the 3 A's, so adequate, acceptable, and able. So if we feel a lack of ability, it affects our feeling of personal power. Now, power, if you can imagine being powerless, what's the next thing you feel? Anxious, because you're helpless.
Everything is overwhelming. Everything is too big. Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. So that's the 3 A's. We need to feel adequate, acceptable, and able. And when we have those 3 things, then life becomes doable, exciting. We can approach each day with enthusiasm and curiosity, and the stuff that happens to us and around us doesn't sink in as much, because if I'm adequate, acceptable, and able, then what Brenda thinks of me doesn't impact me as much, or the thoughtless comment she made doesn't affect me as much, or the fact that she didn't answer my text doesn't affect me as much, or whatever it is. Does it make sense? So,
and I've done none of those things, by the way.
no. I was using
Yeah, I hear you. It's like the arrows go into the heart rather than just bouncing off, and the wound goes deeper.
Yes, yeah. And so then we end up in what I call it. There's a couple of different, I'm picking which one I'm going to use. There's the locus of control, so internal or external, but I usually say victim mode. So there's the three victims. There's the excuses, the blame, and then there's the creator mode. And when we're in creator mode, we've got the 3 A's, and we are creating our life. So we feel able and adequate and acceptable, and we can create a life that gives us happiness and meaning and purpose. And when something isn't pleasant, we just steer around it because we're the driver in the driver's seat of our life. So to go back to your question, what would my sister have needed in order to be okay? That's one of the things. But the other thing is that because the unconscious is the one running the show, and anxiety isn't a mental thing, it's a physical thing. You feel anxiety, your body is experiencing anxiety, even depression. It's there's physical things happening in the brain. There's physical neurotransmitters and hormones being released in the body for this stuff to happen. And yes, there's a nutritional component of that, but the fact that those nutrition elements are low in the beginning is all tied back. So it's like a feedback cycle. Does that make sense? So
it's a circle.
Yeah. So if I'm feeling depressed, I'm not going to eat well. And because I'm not eating well, I'm not going to have enough of everything to make everything. But because I'm stressed, I'm also using up all my precursors. The tryptophan and the serotonin is getting turned into something to make stress not calm. So there's all that chemistry going on. There's a way to switch that off. So the unconscious only needs to know a small amount of information in order to shift. And the first one is, I am safe. The second one is, it's over. Whatever it was, the past, it's over. You're not 3 anymore. You're not 5 anymore. You're not 21 anymore. In my case, I'm not even 47 anymore. So that's over. And the last one is, and it's left me. That's okay. We'll talk about that later. So it's over.
I have to come and visit you to find that one out.
That's right. It's over and I'm safe now. And so that's where I've put together a program. And look, it's not a 1 session thing, but it's also not a 3-year session, 3 years of sessions. I get people in my clinic, they say, I've been seeing psychologists, psychiatrists on and off for 30 years.
Yeah.
And so that is, if you're doing something for 30 years and it hasn't changed, if you're still saying the same thing, then it's not working. So even if you're doing something for 5 years and it's not working. So shifting the unconscious is a bit like shifting the body, and the body and the unconscious are, you could call them one and the same, really. So if you think about going to the gym, 1 gym session does not turn you into a professional bodybuilder. However, you would, if you continue to go for a few weeks, you should be starting to see and feel some results. That's how it works in the unconscious as well. And so if you are seeing someone and it just has become like a place to dump your problems or a connection point or a safe space to talk, that's good too, because we all need that, in our life, someone to talk to and all that sort of thing. But that may not be the answer to getting where we need to go. So because these talk therapies, and I guess I should address what I was going to say, is why are counselling and psychology and all that sort of stuff, medication even, don't work, is because they're not addressing the root cause. They're working from the conscious to the unconscious. Anxiety and depression are in the body. The body is run by the unconscious. Conscious to unconscious work is extremely slow, extremely slow, because our conscious is only a very, very small percent of our brain, like less than 3 to 5%. So in that case, like I can say to myself, look, tomorrow I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a run. If my unconscious doesn't want me to go for a run, I won't be going for a run. My willpower isn't strong enough to do that. So we do need to work from the unconscious to the conscious, not the other way around, in order to switch this stuff off.
Yeah, I really love that, because I was just earlier this morning reading some research, and it was saying that anxiety and depression medication is in the top 10 drugs in Australia, and yet you're saying they don't work. So there's such a need out there for real results, real things that address that unconscious lack of safety, because that just makes people so vulnerable as well, doesn't it?
It definitely does, and it affects everything from our ability to trust our own judgment. You know what I mean? Because if your I'm not safe triggers are going off for God knows what, then there may come something that feels familiar to you, and you think, okay, well, that must be safe, but that actually might be the thing that you need the trigger for. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's very hard to
give me an example.
Okay, so you have women who go into relationships where the relationship's not positive for them, and it's very easy for the other person to play with their self-regulation system to say, will I put up with this or won't I put up with this? Do you know what I'm saying?
Are you talking about gaslighting?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tricky. If you go into a relationship with the unconscious belief that you're not safe, then just about anything your partner does that's a little bit not perfect could trigger that and sabotage your relationship in the end. It's just such a vicious circle, isn't it?
Yeah. The relationship side's quite complex. There's like a broad spectrum there of possible things, but it definitely affects our relationships. It affects it in just so many ways, because that adequate, acceptable and able stuff, if you think about showing up in a relationship, they're all things that would make it better, right? So it does have an impact. It's good that you brought up the anxiety and depression.
We've just got a little bit of interference there. Hold on a second. You've say that again.
It's good that you brought up about the statistics on the anxiety and depression medication, because that's actually been increasing a lot over the last decade, and even children as young as 5 are now being prescribed with anxiety medication, anti-anxiety medication. So it's almost like there was a model. So I guess you know how medicine changes. You know, they discover and learn new things. So originally, with anxiety and depression, it was kind of like, you know, there's something, you're just, you know, there's something wrong with you kind of thing. And then it kind of went to the model of that there's a brain chemical imbalance, and that they started prescribing that model of how do we look at mental health effectively is no longer actually current, because they've now identified that this brain chemistry imbalance is not actually true. The only reason people's brain chemistry is out of balance is because stuff has happened to put it out of balance. Does that make sense?
It's not the root cause, it's just the effect.
It's the effect, it's just the symptom. So while it might be comforting to get a diagnosis of, generalized anxiety disorder or some of the other letters that are, even PTSD or having, complex PTSD or BPD or do you know what I mean? There's so many different things that get diagnosed, which can be comforting because it's like, that's why this is happening to me. But the actual truth of the matter is that we can rebalance this stuff by sorting out those 3 A's and getting it's over and I'm safe now, and being the third thing, in a position of power. So
you remembered. So we let's just wrap up here with about your program and what your offer is, and for anyone who's interested in working with you, how would they go about that?
Okay, so the program runs 4 times a year. It goes for 6 weeks. There are quite a few videos online of past program participants who have volunteered to share their outcomes because they feel so passionately grateful after doing the program. So I can link some of those videos underneath in the chat. The next program starts in early Feb. I was going to start on the 3rd, but I think we're moving to the 10th. You can contact me, email info@mylocalhypnosis.com.au. I'll put that in the chat, and I've also got Facebook groups and stuff. I'll put it all in the chat down below.
That'll be great.
And that program has a guarantee, so it's guaranteed to give you results, or I give money back. I'm not doing this. This isn't my get rich quick scheme. It's 100% me wanting to prevent other families from having this experience, and just having watched my sister helplessly struggle with this stuff and try to live a life where she was continuously being bombarded with low depression and terrible anxiety and things like that. So that's
so it's a 6-week weekly program.
It's all online. Yes,
online.
We do we start on a Thursday night at 7 p.m.
So it's a group thing?
It's a group thing, but there's no group sharing. So we don't do any. So I present to the group on the Thursday night at 7 p.m. You can leave your camera off or whatever. And then that covers off the subject material for week 1. There's an online portal which you log into, and then all the content for week 1 is then available there at 8 p.m. after the webinar ends. And you work through that. And then there's a weekly live session to go through that content. There's a lot of sort of exercises. There's recorded hypnosis. There's videos to watch. There's worksheets to complete. But it's not fluff. There's no fluff. It's all very, very specific processes that have to be done in a specific order. In order to get you to the point where in weeks 4 and 5, I do a 2-hour breakthrough session with each person. Now, sometimes I do 2 of those or 3 of those, as many as it takes to get the result that is needed for that person to get the outcome that's needed. That's why I guarantee it. And then we rescore everything at the end and look at the way forward from there, because look, it's not just about switching off that anxious, depressed cortisol, adrenaline response in the body, but also about looking at what do you want the future to look like? What is it that you really want? And so we go into that as well afterwards. So it's just fabulous. And it's definitely what I was called to do, and it really makes me happy to do it. So that's all anyone could ask for.
I'm so pleased you're living your passion and are a shining example of the work that you do. And I'm so grateful that you presented here today. You're an amazing speaker, so well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, when you were talking about your program, the image that came to mind is that from that song, I can see clearly now the rain is gone,
Oh,
and
that's
you know,
beautiful.
the sun coming out, and yeah, I can see that you offer your clients that opportunity, even though they've got to do the work themselves, really, as well. So thank you.
That's right.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you're watching the recording, there'll be links below as well. If you're not watching this on Facebook but somewhere else, then look out for links in the messages. And we'd love to see you here in the Women's Wisdom Lounge on Facebook for even more next week as well. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for running such a great group. It's really good to have the connection, and I find that these groups really do provide a lot of support and a lot of information that helps people, which is really valuable.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Brenda.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.